Dynamo Moscow is a Russian football club based in Moscow, currently playing in the Russian Premier League. Dynamo's traditional kit colors are blue and white. Their crest is of a blue letter D, written in a traditional cursive style, on a white background with the name of their hometown Moscow written in front of a football underneath. Club's motto "Power and Motion" had been proposed by Maxim Gorky, the famous Russian Soviet author who once was an active member of the Dynamo Sports Society. Dynamo Moscow is the oldest Russian football club and the only one that has always played in the top tier of the Soviet and the Russian football competitions, having never been relegated to the lower divisions. Despite this, it has never won today's Russian Premier League title. During the Soviet era it was affiliated with the MVD and the KGB and was a part of Dynamo Sports Society. Chief of the Soviet security and secret police apparatus Lavrent Beria was a patron of the club until his downfall. On April 10, 2009, VTB Bank acquired 74% of the stock in the club. Boris Rothenberg Sr. was appointed as a chairman, while he was listed by Forbes magazine as the 100th wealthiest person in Russia in 2010, with a net worth of $700 million. As for 2014, he is on 27th place of the list with a net worth of $4 billion. He has been a friend of the Russian President Vladimir Putin since the 1960s, when they took judo lessons together. Boris Rothenberg Sr. was put into sanctions list from the US and EU sides as a result of Russian military intervention in Ukraine. The son of Chairman Boris Rothenberg Jr. plays for Dynamo since 2011, previously playing for Zenit St. Petersburg. The club under the patronage of Alexei Miller, who is another acquaintance of Vladimir Putin during the time of his duty at St. Petersburg mayor's office. History: Dynamo Moscow has its roots in the club Morozovtsy Wariklovo Moskva, founded as a factory team in 1887. The team was renamed OKS Moskva in 1906 and won a series of Moscow League championships from 1910 to 1914. After the Russian Revolution, the club eventually found itself under the authority of the Interior Ministry and its head Felix Dzerzhinsky, chief of the Soviet Union's first secret police force, the notorious Cheka. The club was renamed Dynamo Moscow in 1923 and developed some infamy for its intimidating association with the Interior Ministry, often being referred to as garbage, a Russian criminal slang term for police, by the supporters of other clubs. Dynamo won the first two Soviet championships in 1936 and 1937, a Soviet Cup in 1937, and another pair of national titles in 1940 and 1945. They were also the first Soviet club to tour the West and put on an impressive display during a goodwill visit to the United Kingdom in 1945. Complete unknowns, the Soviet players delivered a surprising performance. They drew 3-3 against Chelsea, before beating Cardiff City 10-1. They also defeated an Arsenal side reinforced by the presence of Stanley Matthews, Stan Mortensen and Joe Bacuzzi by a score of 4-3, in a match played in thick fog at White Hart Lane, before a 2-2 draw against Rangers. They continued to be a strong side at home after the war, and enjoyed their greatest success through the 1950s. Dynamo captured another 5 championships between 1949 and 1959, as well as their second Soviet Cup in 1953. Honors were harder to come by after that time. The club continued to enjoy some success in the Soviet Cup, but has not won a national championship since 1976. Even so, Dynamo's 11 national titles make it the country's third most decorated side behind Dynamo Kyiv and Spartak Moscow. Dynamo's greatest achievement in Europe to this day was in the 1971 Euro 72 European Cup Winners' Cup, where they reached the final at Camp Nou in Barcelona, losing 3-2 to Scottish side Rangers. This was the first time a Russian side had reached a final in a European competition, until CSKA Moscow won the UEFA Cup in 2005. At the end of the 2008 season, Dynamo finished third, and qualified for the 2009 Euro 10 Champions League preliminary round. This was the first time that the club had taken part in the competition, since its rebranding from the European Cup in 1992. On July 29, 2009, Dynamo Moscow recorded and won a Euro-0 away win against Celtic at Celtic Park, which gave them a strong advantage going into the second leg. However, Celtic comfortably defeated Dynamo to a Euro-0 in Moscow to progress, and send them crashing into the Europa League playoff round, where Dynamo were eliminated by Bulgarian side CSKA Sofia after a Euro-0 away draw in Sofia, and a 1-0 Euro-2 home defeat in Moscow. Rivalries. Dynamo's historical rival is Spartak Moscow. Originated in the late 30s, it was the most important game in the Soviet Union for more than 3 decades, attracting thousands of fans to every game. Ironically, on New Year's Day 1936, a combined Dynamo-Spartak team traveled to Paris to face Racing Club de France, then one of Europe's top teams. Shortly after, Dynamo clinched the first-ever Soviet League by beating Spartak 1-0 in Kharkov, in front of 60,000 spectators. Spartak responded by winning the next championship, thus starting one of the biggest sporting and political rivalries in world football. Following Dynamo's decline in the late 70s, the heated rivalry has faded. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, CSKA Moscow has emerged as Spartak's nemesis. Other rivalries are with Zenit St. Petersburg and Lokomotiv Moscow. Stadium. Their ground used to be the historic Dynamo Stadium in Petrovsky Park, which seats 36,540. In 2008, it was closed for demolition. It is to be replaced by VTB Arena in 2016, which will have a capacity of 33,000. In the meantime, Dynamo have been sharing Arena Khimki with rivals PFC CSKA Moscow since 2010, as they too are awaiting the completion of their own new stadium. Seasons 2012 to 2013 and 2013 to 2014. In 2012, after the bad start Dynamo Moscow suffered, losing 5 first league games, they sacked their managing team and signed the Romanian manager Dan Petrescu. He managed to pull Dinamo Moscow out of the relegation spot to a place in the upper part of the table. For some time, team even made into a position to grant European competition next season, but failure to win in the last match day left them 7th with 2 points less than last Europa League place. On April 8, 2014, though, contract was terminated by mutual agreement after heavy loss to league outsiders FC Anzhi Mokhachkala 0-4. As Dynamo Moscow director of sports mhtsquva stated, last year Dan drew the team from the complicated situation, lifted it to the certain level, but recently we have seen no progress. Achievements, domestic competitions, Soviet Top League/Russian Premier League, 11. 1936, 1937, 1940, 1945, 1949, 1954, 1955, 1957, 1959, 1963, 1976, runners-up, 1936, 1946, 1947, 1948, 1950, 1956, 1958, 1962, 1967, 1970, 1986, 1994. Soviet Cup/Russian Cup, 7. 1937, 1953, 1967, 1970, 1977, 1984, 1995, runners-up, 1945, 1949, 1950, 1955, 1979. Soviet Super Cup/Russian Super Cup, 1. 1977, runners-up, and 1984. Progress Cup, 3. 1973, 1981, 1986. International competitions, UEFA Cup Winners' Cup, runners-up, 1972. Non-official, Ciutat de Barcelona Trophy. 1976. League and Cup history. Russia. European campaigns. Players, current squad, as of August 3, 2014, according to the club's official website. Note: flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Youth squad: the following players are registered with the EuroFPL and are listed by club's website as youth players. they are eligible to play for the first team. Note: flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Dynamo's reserve squad played professionally as FC Dynamo D Moscow and FC Dynamo 2 Moscow. A separate team called FC Dynamo 2 Moscow played in the Soviet Second League in 1986 Euro 1989, Soviet Second League B in 1990 Euro 1991, Russian Second League in 1992 Euro 1993 and Russian Third League in 1994 Euro 1997. Notable players: for all Dynamo Moscow players with a Wikipedia article, see List of FC Dynamo Moscow players. Player records: as of November 30, 2009, most league games for Dynamo, Alexander Novikov, 327, most league goals for Dynamo, Sergei Solovov, 135, highest transfer fee paid, a 19 million Anzi Morkachkala for Balazs Sutsuke, highest transfer fee received, a 30 million FC Zenit St. Petersburg for Dani, 1 club men, coaching staff, head coach, Stanislav Cherchesov, assistant coaches, Miroslav Romashenko, Jantara Storia, Vladimir Panikov, reserves team coaches, Dmitry Kuklov, Sergei Chikishov, Yevgeny Plotnikov, former head coaches, gallery. Notable past players: for further list, see List of FC Dynamo Moscow players. Gallery. References. External links: official website, club page at the RFPL official site.